In today's episode of the Hunter Valley PaleoZoo, we'll build an enclosed tropical Dilophosaurus habitat, taking inspiration from the Wetlands Pack for the foliage work to celebrate its release. My name is Supersaurus, and as always, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and welcome back to the channel. Last episode, we built for the winner of the Montana Trail Community Poll, so as promised, today's episode will be for second place, and also the first and only species in this zoo from the 1993 Jurassic Park movie. I can't wait to show you how this one was made, so without further ado, let's get right into the speed build. Okay, so welcome to the speed build part of the video. As always, I've gone ahead and planned out the general shape of the enclosure using terrain paints and my path tool, and we are ready to get right into building. So the first thing I want to do with this enclosure is work on the rock wall that's going to be at the back of the enclosure. Basically, this is like working as the fence for this enclosure, as you would have seen in those opening cinematics, and what I said in the intro, this is like a semi-enclosed enclosure, so you have a rock wall around the back. We'll have a glass viewing on the front for a indoor viewing building for the guests to view at, and then we'll have a mesh roof as well as a little bit of mesh fence around the top to create like a in-universe kind of like a controlled, semi-controlled climate that still has access to natural rainfall and stuff like that. The idea for doing that style of enclosure was one, I felt really inspired by the snow leopard enclosure at Melbourne Zoo, which naturally trails on from the Lion Gorge exhibit, which we based the Deinonychus enclosure on, but also because Dilophosaurus in universe obviously spits venom, so I just thought, to keep in the realism, I didn't want to have the guests exposed to any fence that had open air, so I wanted to use a glass viewing. I wanted to, obviously the safety of the keepers is important as well, so just making sure that this enclosure was airtight around guest level, and then having mesh on the roof and stuff didn't really bother me because I don't think this bit would have that much projection, or we're going to say it's not. But yeah, so as I mentioned, the inspiration for this enclosure was the snow leopard enclosure at Melbourne Zoo, and you'll see an image of that right now on screen, but instead of going for the more tiger, foresty style foliage which suits snow leopards, I wanted to go for a more wetlandsy, tropical, lush feel. One, because Dilophosaurus is often depicted in wetlands within the Jurassic universe, primarily during Camp Cretaceous seasons 4 and 5, as well as I think definitely season 5. I don't know if it was in season 4 actually, but you know what I mean, in the swamp biodome, and as well as Bison Valley, as well as kind of swampy. At least I think that was the main inspiration for the new cypress brush, bringing back the mist from the Bison Valley, and in the wetlands in the free update, as well as even in the original 1993 film, we only see Dilophosaurus around water. So it felt fitting to, if I didn't have early access for this pack, to go for a wetlandsy kind of vibe in the foliage. As you can see, just coming back to the build for a second, I've already gone ahead and built that mesh roof, which I talked about, and done some terrain painting, and we are now working on the guest viewing. So for this, again, based on that inspo image, I've gone ahead and used a black panel wall and then lined it with these spaced out black planks. So you see, I'm just getting that at the right level for guest height, and adding in a few areas where I want guest viewing. I don't want it to be all the way across, just to give the animals spaces to hide from guest view. I don't want the entire habitat to be viewed. For the animals' welfare, they should always have a place they can go where they're not being viewed by the guests, especially if they're shy animals, like the Dilophosaurus most likely would be. So I've gone ahead over here and made these custom wooden columns, which we're lining the gaps, framing the windows with, and then using the wood 2 building pieces to create the rest of the wall there, and a bit of a fence to connect that back up to the rock wall across there. You can see I'm going over here now and just working out the general shape of the building and the corridor where the guests will be walking through, with that big long corridor in the middle, and then the 2 rooms on either side. And of course, got to have a bit of water if we're going for a wetlands theme here. So you can see I went ahead and added a bit there. Not too much though, because the water brush is absolutely huge, and getting control over the water is absolute nightmare. So I just went with that nice pond over there, and I think it turned out quite nice. So here we go, and adding the wooden beams here over to the top, of the windows, and then adding in those panels again and just splitting them from the group to get control of the height to be where I want it. I then decided to make this building here a bit taller, so going ahead and duplicating those columns and just making sure they are lined up on top. I ended up moving these a bunch, not really, but just to get them perfectly in line, because the advanced move tool had them on a slight angle, which sucks, but it was no big deal. You can see what I'm talking about there. Just getting that all in line so that when we have extra walls and stuff like that, it all lines up nicely. And mainly these posts over here that I'm adding across the beams, making sure they all line up. Go ahead and do that. But while I'm going ahead and do that, I think we should talk a little bit more about the wetlands pack that released today. As I am filming this, it'll probably be the day after when you get access to this video. But Hypsilophodon was the final species, not the Stomatosuchus, which I theorized in that little video I made. However, I will say I did correctly predict that this final species will have 13 characters in its name, so proud of that. But yeah, not a croc at all. Although saying that, Hypsilophodon will be in the park as a part of a cohab I'm going to do. Not a geographically accurate cohab, but I'm going to put it with the Muttaburrasaurus, because Australia does have a few Hypsilophodontids, and it felt like they look nice together, I feel. So we'll go ahead and do that in a couple of episodes. And the other species from the wetlands pack we're going to be getting in the Hunter Valley PaleoZoo is definitely the Austroraptor. I've had a really cool idea for a habitat. That should be coming out after the Stygimoloch. So 2 episodes from now will be the Austroraptor. Got a really cool habitat designed for them. And actually that will be next week. The Stygimoloch habitat was really simple build, nothing crazy there, so I went ahead and smashed that out, and hopefully that'll come out in a couple of days to leave next week's spot for the Austroraptor, and we can get right into the wetlands pack from there. And obviously, as I mentioned last episode, Dinokairos will be in the Asia section, but that will be a little while before we get to that. Irritator, again, it's a bit iffy. I'll see. It didn't fit. I tried to fit it in with the Austroraptor build, but yeah, no, it wasn't. It didn't really work. It was just trying to fit too much into that space, and you'll see what I mean when we get to that habitat, but no spoilers yet. But yeah, so we'll see. I would love to put it in. It's a beautiful creature. Frontier did an amazing job, as they always do. But yeah, we'll see. I might find just a miscellaneous spot where it fits in nicely, and we'll put it there, but I'm not really stressing over it. Anyway, coming back to what I'm doing over here in the build, because that's what you came to see. I've gone ahead and added in some girders to add a little bit of ventilation to the building, as well as just bringing in the design element we used on the backstage building for the Lokiceratops and Coryphosaurus last episode, which also, little update off the top of my head here. The update fixed the habitat. Thank you, Frontier. It was very hard for me to explain in the crash notes what was going on, but you figured it out, or just worked it out by itself, but it works. And it's been working all throughout the day. I can permanently change collision status in that enclosure now. I don't know what you did, but it's magical, and I love you so much, Frontier. And please give me early access to the next DLC. Thank you. Sorry, did I say something? Anyway, so yeah, gonna head here and done our girders all the way across. And now it's time to add a roof onto this building. So just gone for a bit of a flat roof here because it needs to connect up with the mesh, and I thought that would be simpler, and using just some corrugated iron sitting on top of some concrete just to create a nice, like, thicker roof, because you've got to have electrical stuff that goes through there, so it needs to have a little bit of hype to it for realism, but I think it looks good. It feels right, and that's what's important. So I go ahead and delete that other pole I did there, decided not to fill it in with wood, but instead just use some rocks to fill that in there. I apologise if the actual footage you just saw was laggy. It was lagging in my end recording it, but who knows if it was for you. Anyway, so apologies if it was, but over here we are adding in some windows to the inside just to bring a bit more light in, because while this lighting will be perfect for another build I have coming up, that will be episode 10, if everything goes according to plan, it's not for this, and the lights don't work inside, apart from the neon lights, which you can see over here. I'm adding a bit of mood lighting, lining the floor over here using those neon rods and little planks on top to create like a, I guess you could also use them as a seat, but like a little lighting trim. And we also do that on the lights here as well, which I think looks really nice. Doesn't add much lighting, but it adds a nice atmosphere to the building, which I quite like. So I go ahead and do that on all the windows, going around over here and over here, and we just make that all nice and get it at a nice level before I do ahead and start working on foliage, I believe. No, we don't. I do a bit of outside foliage and then get bored of it and move on to lining up the roof. So over here I'm using just using the mesh chain link fences. These things are amazing, although I wish we just had plain chain link that didn't have the fence poles. There's quite a few pieces we still need, but yes, sorry. Anyway, moving back to now we move into some foliage, and you can see we added in some cypress trees, not the new ones. These are the trees we had from the base game. The new ones have moss, which, I mean, it's nice to have those. I will say the thing I am most disappointed about in the wetlands pack is the lack of foliage pieces in either that or the free update. All of Planet Zoo's DLCs, apart from the Arctic one, I'm pretty sure. Even the Arctic might have had new foliage, actually. But it definitely had the least, which makes sense, it's Arctic. But, yeah, they all had like more than one set of foliage, and it was all unique. So I would have loved to see placeable lily pads, because they're still biome dependent, and they have to be done with a foliage brush. I would have loved to see duckweed, more grasses, but that's just nitpicky. The dinosaurs are all amazing, and the building pieces we got are also absolutely glorious. Although I wish the map wasn't connected to that sign, but that's another thing. So yeah, I've gone ahead here and added in our nettles for ground foliage, and now doing some sapling work. And we placed in the Russian thistle bushes as well before adding on some bamboo, because bamboo grows great. It's great for zoos, and it just adds some nice cover. You know, let the Dilophosauruses get away if they want to. Speaking of which, we have two Dilophosauruses in this habitat, a male and a female. I don't have a nest in here because it wouldn't fit, so no breeding, but in universe I might have a breeding program for these two. It just felt right to put these guys as a pet, so that's the notation I decided to go for. But moving on here now to the backstage, I decided to do with the backstage like a bit of an interior. You'll see what I mean. I do a quite detailed backstage holding, but then I kind of leave the rest of it because it's super dark in there. You can't see it, I can't see it, and I just kind of wanted to show you for those of you guys that want to go crazy on backstage, just a few techniques for your backstage holding. So you can see here I make a hole in the wall to put a gate, and so I go ahead and do that on both sides, lining it up, and then I make the wall a little bit shorter. It was 6 meters, I decided to make it 4. Before we go ahead and add in our flooring using the flattening foundations, and I think after that we then move on to that backstage holding I was talking about after I change the colour of it, because it can't be all grey. Yeah, let's go for that sandy colour. And yes, so just to kind of like walk you through how I would do backstage holding, going ahead and using our mesh fences. For higher security dinosaurs, you'd probably use these steel beam fences. And these guys spit, so I don't know why exactly I went for mesh, but you don't really see glass in backstage, so I don't know, just keepers can wear protective gear, I guess. That would be the protocol they have. And you can see there I lined it up to make sure it's at the right height, even though they're not going to be able to use it. Before we go ahead and add in a staff gate over there as well. So you can see we have having a separate holding for each individual, as well as a passageway for them So you can imagine how you'd put the Dilophosaurus in those, and then you have an access for the keeper to get into the habitat to clean it. And you can see there we go ahead and add in some caution signs before I use these road marking decals coloured yellow and black, and then I line them up to create this kind of like danger sign. So what you'll often see for dangerous animals in their backstage holding is that there's a area around the enclosure where it's like, you can't go past here. This is the danger zone. You're the dinosaur or the tiger or whatever it is in a real zoo it would be. Not dinosaur. Although birds are dinosaurs, so maybe. This is where it's going to bite your fingers off. This is where it's going to take your hand off. Don't go past here unless you're doing husbandry training or something. If you don't have a reason to be here, don't go past that line. So that's the point of that. And you can see there we added in some upside down dry thistle bushes for hay, as well as some ties there for enrichment. But big cut there, you'll see for some reason the footage was just absolutely horrendous just for that part of it. Like when I recorded it, it was like one frame every like 2 minutes or something. It was absolutely atrocious. So yeah, just decided we're gonna skip that. We don't need it. So yeah, see over there I take some benches from the Deinonychus enclosure, and then I go ahead over here and we start working on some planters. Add a bit of life into this area, and you can also see we have Dino Rules zoo steins, using those again because they're awesome and just for star continuity. I'll put those in most habitats going on from now. Before we add a few more lights on that side, and just go ahead and just add planters all the way down alongside here where there aren't any windows, sorry. And here I decided to build a bit of a water feature. So you'll see I play around with a design. I ended up using these, trying to see about adding these little ones over here, and then having the others. And then I tried the swirly ones for the lights, but they didn't work. And eventually we ended up just going, with these ones that go straight down. And then I line up the catchment bed, which I put gravel in later, and then use some metal posts to create a box, like a frame around it, so that it's not the overlapping concrete textures, and just make it feel more like a water feature that you would see in like you know those ones you see in mall shopping centers and stuff like that, where they go down like a wall. I'm sure you can tell what I mean by just looking at it. There's an image probably on screen. So yeah, we go ahead and do that, and then add some support posts on the side before we add in some of the pebbles I was talking about, and then adding in a few lobster claws for some foliage, as well as using the small mesh fences as like a climbing platform for some ivy. And I think that turned out really nice. Bring some greenery, water, kind of, nice lush vibes inside, which is always nice. So we just go ahead and add some more of Dino Rules signs for education, all of that good stuff that all zoos have. But that's really about it for the end of this big build. I just kind of fix some things up, make it look all neat. But yeah, so I do hope you've enjoyed this one. Come back in a couple of days for the Stedgy Moloch habitat, and then we'll be straight onto the Wetlands DLC. But I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, leave a like, subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. But till next time, bye-bye.